Well, welcome to another podcast of the Saints Martini with myself, Warren, and Irish. How are you today, Irish?
I am doing great. Thank you, Warren. I'm glad to be back again. This is fun.
Oh, it is.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm starting day drinking already. I'm all set.
I'm not going to say I haven't done the same. So
it's all part of the ambiance, you know, something like that.
Oh yes, that's definitely my ambiance.
So anyway, we are still alive. We are still, bugged down in the bug out bunkers. Yeah, oh well, this is the new normal, isn't it? So,
normal is a judging word, Warren.
Yes, but hey, we're still here, so I will drink to that. So,
cheers.
Cheers. So we are, of course, here to talk about some fun movies, and but before we start, I just wanted to ask you, Irish, apart from the two little gems we're going to talk about today, have there been any other movies or TV sort of shows that you have seen in your bug out bunker over the last week that you sort of thought were, oh wow, you know, I've got to tell the world about that?
Oh, put me on the spot, why don't you?
Yeah, that's the fun of it. Live podcasting.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. I know that the series finale of The Magicians just happened. And on Sci-Fi Channel here. Do you guys get that there?
We
in
do
Australia?
if I still had cable, but I cancelled my cable a little while
ago.
Oh
my gosh. Okay, well, after 5 seasons, the show The Magicians is ending, and I have not yet watched the finale, the series finale, because I can't bring myself to do it.
Right.
So now I've gone back to actually watch the series from the beginning on Netflix. So I'm going to watch the whole thing again, and then I will try to bring myself to watch the finale because it's one of my favorite shows and it's going to be gone. So I'm sad about that.
I hate it when that happens. You fall in love with a show and it's no more. Yeah.
It happens all the time to me. It's very sad. But I've been watching that one a lot. And then I just started watching Motherland Fort Salem, which is a new show, and that one's kind of cool.
Right.
But yeah, I binged on Ozark season 3 on Netflix. If you haven't watched that, it's crazy.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Oh, love that show. The writers, I bow to them. They are so brilliant, and I keep getting shocked by the twists and turns. So,
so you've really been loving it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm not usually one to watch a show that has like violence, like realistic kind of violence in it. I don't really like that kind of thing. But this show, the writing really got me. So, yeah, I keep going back for it. And the acting is amazing. The whole cast is amazing.
Okay.
So how about you?
Oh, well, I have to be just quickly talking about shows that got cancelled when I was just so into them and could have handled, 5 more series, was Zoo. Did you ever watch Zoo? It was a Netflix original. It's still available. There are 3 seasons available before it was canned. I love the show. The idea of the show is that something happens in the world and all animals stop eating each other and attacking each other. They all work as one giant group, and their prey are humans. Right? And
what a twist!
So the whole idea is that I don't know, a snake won't eat a mouse anymore. No. I don't quite understand how animals that actually eat other tiny animals actually are meant to survive. They don't.
I was going to say, are they vegan lions now? What's happening?
I don't really quite get that, but it's a TV show, remember? So we've got to put it. Okay. So we've got to put it into some sort of perspective. But the whole idea is that so all animals are now basically aggressive to humans. So your pet Labrador is now a wolf, basically.
Oh,
right?
okay.
It's your pet cat is now a little lion. Everything sort of changes, and so it's a group of scientists. They form the United Nations. Kind of forms. Well, it's the world doesn't actually know this is happening just yet. They think something's happening. The United Nations kind of knows, like, was it the World Health Organization or whatever, and they form a special team, like the A-team, right? They don't drive around in a van or anything like that, so don't worry about that.
I love that show, Warren. Stop it.
And they have to try to work out what's going on. And the show will go on, and the story will change through the seasons to where it becomes a high espionage, black ops type. The government is working in with major corporations. Like it gets out of control in the end. It is a fantastic show to watch.
My mouth is agape at your description of it, so I'm really curious now.
Yeah. It starts off where you just think it's a group of, an ex-soldier, a journalist, a biologist, they team up, under the UN to try to track down what's going on. But that's not what's going on. It becomes this huge international conspiracy. It's a fantastic show. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Oh, I'm going to definitely check it out. Thank you. I've been looking for something new.
Yeah. But I also, but what I did watch was Bombshell, which I've been wanting to see.
I haven't seen that yet either.
Yeah, with the fall of, was it Roger Stone? Is that his name? Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes.
Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes.
Yeah, Roger Ailes, and obviously set to the backdrop of Fox News.
Yes.
Fascinating movie.
Roger Stone is a completely different weirdo.
Fascinating movie. Absolutely fascinating. What was really fascinating to see about it, too, was to see the people who were currently on Fox News, how they were represented in the movie. So not the people who used to be on there, but the people who still are. And I thought that was one of the most interesting things. Like, I swear we see Sean Hannity in that movie take his jacket off and he's carrying a pistol strapped to his belt.
I would not doubt that for 1 second. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It's like, you're in an office. Why?
He blocked me on Twitter years ago. So.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yes.
What, you mean big football star?
He didn't like my mouth. Like, I don't care.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. But don't you know, it's an outrage. It's an outrage. Why are you part of the deep state? Part of the deep state, Irish.
I've been told I'm the deep state. Okay.
The deep state. One day someone has to explain to me what this bloody mythical group called the deep state actually is. I don't know. Oh. One day someone has to tell me. But anyway, yeah, I watched Bombshell. It was really good. I really, really liked it. And also fascinating too when you see these American movies where of the four main stars, only one was American. And they're all playing American. It's really interesting. I mean, two were Australian and one was South African.
That doesn't really surprise me, honestly. Most of our really great actors here turn out to be Canadian or something else.
Oh, no, look, I'm a huge fan of Ellen
The Canadians are coming down here and stealing our jobs for being famous actors.
Build a wall, Irish. Build a wall.
No, we'd never have any good comedy. No Republicans are funny. Intentionally.
But Irish, they don't send us their best. They just send us actors. Nothing but actors. Some of them, I assume, are good actors, but I'll go back up my escalator. No. Anyway, we should probably actually talk about some movies, shouldn't we?
We probably should.
So anyway, before we do, as always, of course, if you are in the Yarraville area, please stop off at Woven Cafe for a coffee, pick up some takeaway. 175B Stephen Street, Yarraville. If you don't know where Yarraville is, don't worry about it. You're too far away. You're breaking the law. If you know where it is, go and get a coffee. They're fantastic. And also, if you are an Australian at the moment, please download the government tracking app for COVID-19. No, it is not Big Brother. No, they are not trying to find out where you are. They just want to try to stop COVID spiking so they can see where the actual epicenters are. The sooner we find out that information, the sooner we can all go back to work. So please download the app. Okay, that's enough of all of that. Let's talk about some movies, Irish.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so, now, as we started last week, which was show number 1. We will tell you what movies we're going to do, so you can pause it right now, watch them, and come back if you like. Now, both the movies we're going to talk about are available on YouTube, so they're very easy to watch. The first one is Spellbound, and our second one will be The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues. Ooh, spooky, spooky, spooky. Yes. So if you want to pause now, by all means do, and then you can come back. So anyway, our first movie of the podcast, number 2, is Spellbound. Now, from 1945 and directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and of course starring
Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman.
And Ingrid Bergman. I just had a total mind fail there. Sorry about that.
Oh, believe me, I get that.
So sorry about that. Now, this is an amazing little film from, as we said, 1945, black and white. It is very Alfred Hitchcock. It's a bit like we said last week, where we said sort of, this is so Roger Corman. Well, this is so Alfred Hitchcock, just with the camera angles and the lighting. And this is just Hitchcock's fingerprints are obviously on every single, individual frame of this. I really, really like the film. What it's basically about is that Ingrid Bergman plays a doctor, a psychiatrist, who works at the Green Manors Community Mental Hospital in Vermont. Now, I don't actually know where Vermont is for
it's
anyone
up in our northeast part of our country, New England area.
Okay, so for all non-Americans. Yep. So near New York, is that right?
Yes, it is near New York, yes.
Okay. That would explain the second part of the film. Okay. So anyway, she works there, and a new head of psychiatry is going to be coming in the next day. Well, this is our Gregory Peck character, but he's not really all there. It's very, very... He seems not to be quite 100% with it. And it turns out that he's not actually the real person. He's stolen the identity of the doctor who was meant to be coming in to take over. It turns out that the doctor has been murdered. Now, just be careful. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
Okay. And, but this all happens pretty quick. And, he has taken over the identity. He then flees. Ingrid Bergman follows because she's in love with him and he is kind of fallen in love with her. And our whole movie will be about trying to prove his innocence. Like, in other words, for him to get his memory back, because obviously he's suffering from amnesia. So she will try to treat him, even though I think she breaks every medical code that there probably is.
Yes.
Okay. But she will try to treat him and get his memory back, find out what happened, and prove his innocence. Will she do it? Will she not do it? Did he do it? Did he not do it? I don't know. You'll have to watch the film. But I thought this was... I'd never seen this, actually, Irish, and I loved it. I really did. What did you think?
Yeah. The reason I wanted to watch it, and I suggested this film because as I was looking for something for us to watch, one, we had just watched a Gregory Peck movie and the £1 Million Note from last week. And I thought, well, let me just see what other movies he'd done because I really hadn't seen a lot of his films. And I found this one, and it was a Hitchcock movie set in 1945. And really what made me want to watch it was the Salvador Dali dream sequence. There's a dream sequence set in this that all of the imagery comes directly from Salvador Dali. They hired him to do the film, and he actually came in with the production designer from, I believe, Gone with the Wind. I think that was William Menzies, I think was his name. He was the production designer, but he didn't really want to listen to anything that Salvador Dali wanted to do. They didn't really agree on what they wanted to do. So in the end, Alfred Hitchcock gave Dali like a free license to do whatever he wanted. But they ended up cutting, it was about a 20-minute sequence. They ended up cutting 14 minutes from it. So you don't get to see as much as maybe, you don't get to see as much as maybe there was available. But I've always been fascinated by Dali's art, and we have a really great Salvador Dali museum just in St. Petersburg in Florida, here near where I live, about an hour and a half from me, actually in the city that I was born. And so for me to see it, it was really cool. It was definitely his work, even the things that ended up in the film. So I really liked that part of it. I enjoyed the film. It was crazy.
Well, I mean, when we talk about, Mel Brooks's High Anxiety. Oh, sorry. Well, no, we're talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound. Sorry. I could have been watching the same movies, just one with comedy and one without. I was stunned at how similar they are. I mean, I know that High Anxiety is, by Mel Brooks, is obviously a send-up of everything Alfred Hitchcock, okay?
Yes.
So I fully get that. But I think this movie, more than any of the others, was the major influence.
I could see that, yeah, actually. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, good take.
It's, I mean, yes, there are bits in High Anxiety that get drawn from all other aspects of of Alfred Hitchcock, but this one in particular. Look, I really, really liked it. I thought the acting was great. One of the downsides I did see, though, is I think that Ingrid Bergman was too young for the role that she had. I mean, do you know how old she was when she made this?
I don't actually, but she did seem young. I think they did kind of make reference to that at one point when one of the older psychiatrists, the psychoanalyst, said, well, you're young in this field and, very young here. And they also really looked down on her in a sense, even though they sort of respected her that she was a doctor there, the only woman. They basically all wanted to date her.
Yes.
And the entire thing was basically about how all these men wanted her, but she was very serious and into science and wanted to help people. But then Gregory Peck walked through the door and all that went out the window. I thought, the character from DC Comics, the girlfriend of the Joker, who was in Arkham Asylum, she was originally his psychotherapist, Harley Quinn.
Oh, Harley Quinn, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like this was like a predecessor for Harley Quinn. I thought. This woman doesn't know anything about this man. Yeah. She knows all of a sudden that he has some serious problems, but yet she's so in love with him. And she believes that no one that she loves could be evil, as she says. And one of the other characters that she puts her trust in this is a father-like Freudian kind of character. He seems to me to be like a Dr. Freud. And he's the one that sets everything straight for her in her mind. And he tells her that a woman can be a great doctor, but as soon as she gets to be in love, she throws all that out the window, and that she's now 20 times crazier than this man.
Yes, but aren't they? Isn't even her character? She's still meant to be of the Freudian school, though, isn't she?
Well, yes, but this is so early in like the psychoanalysis era, I think, in 1945 when this was done, that the concept of an amnesia even seemed weird to people. It was like, amnesia? What could that be? In a sense. Even really up until the 1970s, going to see a psychiatrist was viewed as almost like defeat, wasn't it? It's like you only went to one if you were crazy. In other words, whereas today, people will go to them so they don't go crazy. Oh, if you haven't been to a psychiatrist, you better get to a psychiatrist. Everybody needs one. That's all I'm going to say. But, actually, this film, producer David Selnick, or Size, I can't remember his name. It was Seisnick, right?
I thought it was Seisnick, isn't it? Seisnick?
Yeah.
Seisnick.
He, I hear that he wanted to create this film because he wanted to tell people about psychoanalysis. Like that was in an early period when people didn't know a lot about it, and he really wanted people to learn about it. So they had somebody that they had gotten the book from someone, and for about $40,000. I think it was called The House of Dr. Edwards, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you're correct. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, they bought it for $40,000, the rights to it, and they wanted to have a psychoanalyst on the set, but they didn't really listen to him. And what takes me back to what you said earlier when, it's only a TV show, is that apparently that's what Hitchcock told the psychoanalyst who was on set as a consultant. When she wanted to say, you shouldn't do this, he said, my dear, it's only a movie.
Right. That's really interesting. Well, I suppose it's a little bit like there's a YouTube channel that I love called History Buffs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're into historical movies and you want to find out just how true that movie really is to the real events, I highly recommend you go and subscribe to History Buffs on YouTube.
Okay.
Nick Hodges is a guy who does it, and it is absolutely brilliant. And I watched the other day his latest one, which was Elizabeth the Golden Age. He'd also had done the original Elizabeth, which he tore apart.
Yeah.
And he then did Elizabeth the Golden Age, and it was fascinating to find out, because, I know a bit about the Elizabethan age, but not to any huge detail. Right. And he was showing that these people were not real. This person was made up. This event never happened. Oh, this did happen, but 20 years later. Oh, this did happen, but 5 years earlier. Absolutely fascinating stuff. And I'm so off the point now. What I meant by all of that.
That happens to me all the time.
What I meant by that is in this film, I get what he's saying. It's the idea, it doesn't matter. Nobody knows any better. So just do what is entertaining. Like, because no one actually knows. You can't flap your hands in the air and fly, like in a movie, because everyone knows you can't really do that, right? But you can make up some mythical rocket and put someone in it. That's cool, because most people don't understand rocketry. So you can get away with it. And I think, I totally get that. I really do. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get it. Wow, that was a bloody rant, wasn't it?
It's not a rant. You had things to say, man.
There you go. There you go. Yes. I'm on my pedestal. I just came down my golden elevator.
All I know is that I thought when you were talking about that, I was like, yes, I just read Elizabeth Renaissance Prince by Lisa Hilton. So I was like, I've just been reading all about Elizabeth. So yeah, that's great. And now I want to watch that.
Oh my God, I'll shut up now.
You don't do that, Warren. We're on a podcast.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're meant to talk on the podcast. Sorry. Forgot about that. I do this every podcast. I get so distracted by shiny objects. It's just,
I think we talked last week 6 hours, not, including the time we actually recorded. But yeah, other than that, a total of 6 hours last week.
6 hours, an hour and a half went on air.
That's exactly right. Well, I hadn't talked to you in 2 years. So.
Yes, I know. Had it been? No, it can't have been 2 years, has it? 2 years?
Maybe.
I thought it was about a year, but
maybe a year. Time is all smooshed together. I've had a lot of changes in my life.
Oh, tell me about it. There are some things that I look back. No, I'm not going to get digressed. No, I'm not going to go off topic. Back to the movie. That was so tempting.
Okay, yes, let's do that.
But we were, yes. So we were talking about the fact that it doesn't matter if it's not the way it really is. Because that is an interesting point too. I mean, the idea of a psychiatrist literally having an affair with her patient while they're undergoing to me seems, well, one, I believe it's illegal, but I I don't know, but
It's unethical,
unethical.
At the least.
But also, wouldn't it destroy the whole concept of analysis? Because you would now be so biased in what you're hearing.
Well, she absolutely was. I think that was part of the problem. Everything he was saying to her, and even though I don't want to give away the ending, but regardless, she just didn't believe that she could love somebody who was a criminal.
Yeah.
And she needed some psychoanalysis. I'm sorry. Like, seriously. And every man in the staff at the insane asylum, I guess it was, really, because there were some crazy people in there. They had one patient in who obviously had a problem with men and had some weird sexual problem, but they wouldn't let them talk about that in the movie because of the time. So they had to take out, references to things that were provocative, like sex menace and frustrations, and they had to take out the words libido and tomcat. They weren't allowed to use any of those in that film.
Really?
So, yeah. So the censors thought it was too much sexual content. So that had to be removed. So there was a lot of things from the original book that they didn't put into the film, which happens so much. Don't get me started on the Shannara series.
Well, isn't there a great story that when Psycho, the making of Psycho, when was it Janet Leigh? Was that star?
Yes.
The famous shower scene where apparently in the actual outtakes, or we never got to see it, but in the outtakes, you get to see her boobs, basically, because it's just, as she's moving around, it kind of just happens. And he said, all right, print. And apparently the studio said, we can't print that. And Alfred Hitchcock was like, well, why not? And it was just like, do you not understand certain laws in this country right now? We cannot print that. And Alfred Hitchcock was like, well, what? So it's okay to show her being knifed to death, but not. Yeah. So it's very interesting, what you just saying there.
You have tapped into the very difference between European and American film. Right there.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
In European film, they reduce the amount of violence you all can see in different areas of the world. And here in the U.S., it's only sex that they hide. So you can see all the violence you want, but the sex they want to put behind something.
See, although that's changed now, though, hasn't it? I mean, HBO is the new, what was it, Cinemax? Everyone used to refer to as Skinmax.
Well, yeah, Cinemax, late night, that stuff. Sure, that was soft core porn then, what they considered here, but that was normal stuff in Europe. And I'll give you a good example. When we were doing Sheena, we had to shoot two different versions of some of the scenes because because in the European version of the show, we showed her breasts. And in the American version of the show, that absolutely was not allowed. They were hidden. My
copy must be the European print then.
Yeah, it must be, because in the U.S., absolutely no breasts allowed.
Because you definitely do, and I'm a guy, yeah, all right, I like seeing Gina Lee Nolan's boobs. Okay, sue me, all right? Okay, but yeah, definitely, there is a little bit of, that sort of action especially in the early episodes, not so much in the later ones, but in the early ones. Yeah. So,
and it was basically required for the European market in order to be successful, and it was absolutely not allowed in the American market in order to be successful.
Right. That's really interesting. Although I never... The thing about your version of Sheena, the one that you worked on, was that in the past, Sheena always had an accent. Although it was a bad accent, don't get me wrong, this kind of weird idea of how a white person would speak in Africa, my attitude was they would speak like everybody else in Africa. Yes. You know what I mean? But anyway.
Yes.
But they came up with this weird accent, that they would have. But Gina Lee Nolan just spoke like she just stepped out of California University.
Okay, well.
And I never understood that. I know in the show... It's actually kind of in the show, they lead you down the track that she actually left the jungle to go to university and come back. but they never actually say it happened. They just kind of hint at it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna say too much about that because I don't want to say anything that might make someone feel bad. But I'm just gonna say that not all actors are multidimensional type of actors who can do dialects of any kind.
Say no more.
So
that explains
you'll just leave it at that.
I think everyone.
Some actors are lovely, lovely people. Period.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it to you this way: I still love the show. It didn't stop me.
Oh, you have to love shows for what they are. Yeah. I mean, honestly, come on. I mean,
who is going to fall in love with the story of Sheena and take any element of it seriously? Do you know what I mean? So it's like Superman. Oh, a man comes from another planet. He wears a cape and his underpants on the outside, and he can fly. You're not meant to take it seriously. It's meant to be fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's so funny. I have a story about going to see a superhero film, one of the Marvel films, one of the Captain America things. He jumped out of a window really high up in a building, landed on his shield on the cement. This Marvel film, this superhero film, and someone looks at me and says, "This is so unrealistic."
I'm sorry. What? This is unrealistic. Captain America is a realistic character. Oh, my God.
Like, what about this isn't crazy that you just said that to me?
Oh, my God. Oh, I love that. Oh, my God, that is so good.
It's one of my favorite moments.
I'm trying not
and now
to
every time I watch that film, I think in my head, this is so unrealistic.
Oh, my God, I love that. I absolutely love that. That.
Sometime I'll tell you who that was.
Oh, my God. Oh, God, that is so good. Anyway, before I actually choke here, so I'm trying to hold back the laughter.
In default mode, giggle mode. That's what my default mode is.
Oh my God. Anyway, so we've got over the fact that obviously she does not follow the code of ethics as psychiatrist.
Well, how could she be expected to? She's a woman in love, for God's sakes.
That is. Now, okay, here's an interesting point. Do you think if they remade this movie today, they would still do that, or they would she would follow him for a slightly different reason?
They have remade this movie, Warren.
Oh my God, did they? Sorry.
It's Harley Quinn. No, it's Harley Quinn and the Joker.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it is.
Fuck.
No, I'm sorry.
I was thinking to myself, what?
I'm sorry, I don't like Harley Quinn.
That's okay.
It's fine. Sorry. It's my fault. There were too many of them at MegaCon at one time. I couldn't take it. So.
I don't like Harley Quinn. I don't know. I love Margot Robbie. I don't.
Oh, I love her. I thought she was great. No, that has nothing to do with it. And I'm glad that in this last movie, which I have not seen yet, Birds of Prey, because I don't have a lot of faith in DC films, but I'm going to try it because I am exactly happy because I really, really wanted this, is that they did a film where she had kicked him to the curb. So she did. And now I'll watch the movie because I'm here for that content.
Well, now I've forgotten her name. She was in one of the big stars of all the nerds who lived in a flat. Big Bang Theory.
Kaylee
Kaylee Cuoco or something. It said Kaylee.
I know who you're talking about. She played Penny.
Penny. We'll just call her Penny.
I can't think of her name, though.
Now, isn't she involved in the animated or the cartoon version of Harley Quinn?
She might be. I don't know for sure. I know Mark Hamill had been doing the voice of the Joker for a very long time.
And there was something about the fact that they'd taken it in a direction where they were actually we're going to really spice this up, and they decided they were going to make her gay.
Oh. But I haven't seen that.
It was an interview I saw with her, but because I wasn't kind of following the comics, I didn't really understand what was going on.
Right.
But she was sort of saying, "Oh no, we're just going to rewrite this all." Yeah. Anyway, just in regards to Harley Quinn, I don't know. Everyone knows. Let us know. I don't know. I'm day drinking.
Yeah, that's honestly, as I was watching this, I could see Ingrid Bergman as like being her archetype. I thought this was crazy.
It's yes. Okay. We should just change this to Two Drunk Friends. I reckon that would be a better name for the show.
I'm not drunk yet. Don't.
Well, no, you know what I mean.
Don't make me get there to do a show with you. I'm sorry.
Two tipsy friends. Two day drinking friends. I don't know. But
I'll have to start drinking martinis. That's the problem.
I loved some of the cinematography in this. I have to admit with you, it's because you know how that like the argument is, and I suppose in 1945 everything was still kind of black and white, except for a few huge blockbusters. I mean, we had what was it? You know, like The Wizard of Oz, and there were a few films that were in color coming out of the United States, but most cinema was still black and white. But that art of making, you know, black and white cinema look like it's color, you know, with shades. And this movie is magnificent with that. It's just the cinematography is, I think, is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, the cinematography in this.
Well, I actually thought a lot of it was really cool. Not the ski scene. When they went skiing, that was too much. But
that actually went back into B-grade movie territory. That
was great, honestly. But do you have a favorite moment in the film?
I don't know. This might sound a bit funny because there's nothing real, although it's kind of important to the end of the film. I loved the scenes in Grand Central Station. With the separations, you know, with like the whole idea is 1945, you don't show public affection, but we'd just been through a war and people didn't care anymore, and they were kissing in public while they said goodbye. I thought that was very moving.
Right. Interesting.
So I actually found that, but for me, it's the ending. I love the ending.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I really love the ending because I'm one of those people that loves that old murder mystery type thing. You know, where everyone sits around the room and the detective walks around and explains exactly what happened.
Right. So you love that POV shot that they did.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. I really like that.
I'm going to give a trigger warning for people, though. If you have some issues with guns and that sort of thing, maybe don't watch the ending of this film because, it's a little bit. If you're not expecting it and you have an issue with it, it might be hard for some people to watch. But I do think it was brilliantly done, especially for the time period when they didn't, you know, they had to convey something horrific without really showing the type of thing they would show now.
I think it was a brilliant way of showing a horrific act without showing the horrific act. I
agree with you on that. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to say my favorite moment in the film was a bit more trite.
Right.
She was when Gregory Peck's character first got to the actual hospital, and she was in dinner, and he walked in, and she was shocked, and then they ended up going on a picnic together the next day because he insisted upon it. Okay, they are on the beach going to this picnic, and they're climbing under things, and her hair is mussed, and he asks her as he takes things out of the picnic basket, "Which would you like, ham or liverwurst?" And the camera slowly pushes to her face. And it's soft, and it's like it's got Vaseline on the lens, and it slowly pushes in on her, and you can see this dreamy look on her face, and she says in her most adoring voice, "Liverwurst." That was my favorite moment in the whole film.
Do you know, this just shows how much of an idiot I am, right? I watched that scene, and you know, all I took from it was, there's a girl after my own heart. I will every day take a girl who would take liverwurst over ham, because liverwurst is so underrated and I love it. I didn't get any of the cinema. I didn't get any of that. All I got was, cool chick. She likes liverwurst. Oh, yeah, I'm on board with that.
I felt like she was she was so enamored with him.
Yeah.
But two, she was so happy that the choices included liverwurst. She was just
okay. This is where obviously
lost in the dream of all the love.
Okay, this is where we clearly separate a little bit, because to me, liverwurst is a luxury product. I love liverwurst sandwiches. I get where you're going with this.
Such a dramatic moment, though, Warren.
Yeah, I know. I get where you're going.
And I feel like it was the moment when she really felt like she fell in love with him.
Yes. No. Yeah, no. I get that though. I think she likes him. She's interested in him. When she comes back from the picnic, you're right. She's in love.
Yeah, and I think it was almost that moment that the camera really wanted you to know. And that was the cinematography of it. Like, I felt that moment. And it doesn't matter if it was, trite to us or whatever. That moment for her was everything.
Yeah. Yes. It's just that I couldn't see past the food. I was just thinking about so bad. I'm so bad. When do you think he fell in love with her? Do you think it was actually from the second he saw her? Do you think it was love at first sight? Or do you think it took him, like, I kind of saw it a little bit like he fell in love with her as soon as he saw her, but it took him a little bit of time before he could accept the fact he was in love with her.
I would like to say that's lovely. I am more cynical, I guess.
Right?
Yeah, sure. I believe he really liked the look of her when he first saw her. I believe he fell in lust with her, perhaps.
Right.
In the appropriate time period of 1945 style lust. Like, I would like to take her on a picnic and give her some liverwurst. But
sounds like every date I've ever been on. I mean, liverwurst
I have never been on that date either. So. But I'm honestly not sure, because his character was so messed up. Like, as soon as he hugged her at that one point, or the whole thing at the I don't want to tell too much, but the dining room scene when she scraped a shape on the table with her fork and he freaked out. I thought, oh no, this man isn't really capable of thinking clearly. Therefore, how could he love somebody like this? I almost feel like initially it was his attachment to her, that she was the only person who was being kind to him, really.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it is interesting too. They do bring up the point in this movie, which I remember being taught at university actually, which is that you cannot, under hypnosis, with a couple of odd exceptions, you cannot get somebody to undertake an act while under hypnosis that they morally object to in their real life. So,
yes.
So the idea, like this idea, they say, you see these shows where these hypnotists come along and they say, all right, you're now a striptease artist, right? And the person takes their clothes off.
Mm-hmm.
If the person does that, it means they weren't actually bothered by it in real life. Right? If they kind of just take their jumper off and that's it, their jumper, their, what do you call it, sweater, jersey.
I get you.
I keep using Australian, sweater. I keep using Australian terms, sorry. Then that means that, no, they wouldn't. So their concept of that is just to take their jersey off, right?
Right.
And they bring this up. And so the whole idea is that if he really can't kill as he is now, he couldn't have killed as he was then. So the idea is that the man she's fallen in love with now is exactly the same man that they are still trying to discover, but they're actually the same man. So she falls in love with him now, and he falls in love with her now. As soon as he gets his memory back, none of that will change. I think that's meant to be their argument through all of this.
Probably, yes. I agree with you on that.
But I am not a doctor. Fabulon.
No, I'm mostly just a crazy person. I would not give any kind of psychoanalyzing to anybody. Believe me.
Now, obviously, here's the other thing too I thought that was interesting about it too, was that it's 1945. So if he's now this guy, he's a civilian, why didn't he go to war? And because, in a sense, they have to kind of throw in this thing, he did go to war, but he was invalided out as wounded. Because if you didn't do that, because of when the movie was made, the man would be seen as not being a real man, if you get where I'm trying to go with this.
Right.
Because he didn't do his service in time of need. Because if you imagine, if he just had been a guy that never went to war, this movie's made in 1945, they had to throw in there that he was invalided out, because otherwise we would hate the character. Now, we wouldn't hate the character now, but in 1945, would audiences have accepted him? Do you know what I mean? If he hadn't...
Yeah, well, probably not.
Yeah.
Because, he would have been seen as weak.
Yes. And I thought it was interesting they had to throw that into the story.
Right.
You know,
that makes sense, though, in that time period, because the audience would be searching psychologically for a reason not to hate this person or distrust him. Yeah. And if it was something that absolutely, if he hadn't gone for some reason, they would have been distrusting of him.
Yeah, so I found that quite interesting. And now we know, obviously, that you love Gregory Peck, Irish. Okay, we found that out last week. I didn't know that I loved
Gregory Peck, Warren. I thought I loved Cary Grant and Errol Flynn, and then here we are.
Well, you can have all three. You can have a rotation if you want.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would be ideal.
Or you just say, hey, it's 2020. We all come and live together. I mean. I didn't realize Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I get it. I mean, most of the world was in love with him when...
Well, I fell in love with him as a very young girl watching things like Captain Blood and things like that.
Right,
so,
okay.
Yeah, and Robin Hood, things like that. Silly movies that... And then later I read his book and learned more about him, and I thought, oh...
He was not a very nice man.
No, he was not. And I was ashamed that I liked his movies. And I can't say that I still don't enjoy watching him, but yeah, there's always that underlying thing, like watching, I'm not going to talk about it.
No.
Mel Gibson.
No.
I don't want to say. It's like watching a Mel Gibson movie now. I'm sorry.
I fully understand. It's a little bit like I can watch old Mel Gibson movies. I can't watch modern ones. Because I never saw his Mayan film. I can't even remember what it was called. It happened after. Don't bother. It is full of so many bullshit political statements.
I'm sure it is. I loved The Patriot and I loved Braveheart, even though they weren't historically accurate. But I loved them, and then I found out things about him, and I thought, oh. Well, I just can't ever watch, it's hard now.
It is a South American film. The problem with that, too, is it doesn't just play with history. It rewrites history totally. That movie is virtually a political comment. And it's just, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, that movie, unfortunately. There is nothing. Apocalypto. Yeah, it is absolute just bullshit. He takes two societies and blends them together to create this mythical society, which is somehow or other the Spanish end up coming to at the end of the movie. It is absolute nonsense. He takes the Mayan and who was the other huge culture in South America?
Aztec.
The Aztec. And he blends them into one. So one minute they're acting as Mayans, the other minute they're acting as Aztecs. There is nothing historical about that movie at all.
And as Hitchcock would say, my dear, it's only a movie.
This is very, very true. But when we're making a fantasy movie, it's fine. Like when we're making Spellbound, that's fine, right? That's absolutely fine.
I agree with you completely. When it's supposed to be historical, be historical. Don't tell people things that aren't true.
And
because they see the movie and then they think that's what happened.
That's right. There are too many people who get their history these days from movies, which is a shame, but it's just reality. Mind you, people got history from watching Shakespeare. So, do you know what I mean? It's nothing new, necessarily in society. But in saying that, people that make historical movies, they've got responsibilities. And when people like Mel Gibson just shit on it, quite literally shit on their responsibility because of their own personal politics, I've got a problem with that. I really got a problem with that.
I really do too. I do.
I
absolutely do. So I don't think there's anything that's good about putting out something fake within a historical story. I think there's something very, very wrong with that. I don't care if it, the real thing that happened doesn't make for a great finish, then don't do the film.
Correct. Correct.
I just don't get that. So yeah, I have a real problem with that too.
Yeah. It's but then again, I love I'm about to say Mel Brooks. I love
Mel Brooks.
I love Mel Brooks. So he's one of my heroes. I love Mel Gibson's early work. When he was just an actor.
I do too. I can't deny
it. And it's like we said last week. With certain people, I kind of like. Look, I'm prepared to watch their work as an actor. I just don't want to hear their politics.
Right. I get that. Yeah.
Especially when I don't mind their politics when it's normal. I just can't stand it when it's Looney Tunes, deep state, tinfoil hat.
That's the worst.
Yeah, I know. All right. Is there anything else we really need to say about Spellbound?
No, but I recommend it if you like Dolly, especially. There's some moments in there it's worth seeing. So.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love the dream sequence. I
wish I could see the whole 20 minutes of it. I wish there was a director's cut of that section I could watch, but
I wonder if it exists. It must.
I don't know. It must somewhere, but who has it? That's the question.
I know, and the problem is just because it exists doesn't mean it's available. So if you were going to rate this, it feels somehow not fair to use the Eric Roberts rating on this movie because it's, but we will because we do. How many Erics are you going to give this, Irish?
I think this was a 4. I mean, in its day, it won a lot of awards. It did really well in the box office. It brought people in. It spread what they thought at the time was new information. About a film and mental health. It was actually one of the earliest uses of theremin in the script. So they really want. I feel like they were trying to do something good as well as shock and to entertain people. I think I'd give it like a 4. Eric Roberts.
I'm going to give it. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to give it 5.
Oh wow!
I'm going the full Monty. I'm giving it everything. I love the cinematography of it. I really liked the story. I thought the script was good. The acting was really good. I thought the stars. Well, I mean, seriously,
how can you go wrong?
How can you go wrong? Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck. Yes. You've got Alfred Hitchcock directing. I was held all the way through. Did he do it? Did he not do it? I mean, this was made in 1945. I'm watching this in 2020, and I am still gripped to find out who done it.
I agree. I didn't know till the last minute when they finally, explained it. So that was pretty good.
So to me, that I really love. Maybe I should actually wind that back to 4.5 because with the ending, even though I love the ending, the one downside is that there were no clues throughout the movie, so you could try to work it out yourself.
I agree with that. I think he was trying not to make it too obvious.
Yeah. And I
think
that was the only thing maybe I would have liked. A few little breadcrumbs in there. So for the really highly intelligent, of which I am not one, but for those who are, they maybe could have tried to work it out themselves.
Right.
You know, but absolutely brilliant. And also, did you notice his cameo, Alfred Hitchcock's cameo? Because of course, in every Hitchcock movie, there is
I didn't.
Hitchcock.
Where was he?
Okay, he comes out of a lift or an elevator in the what's that tower in New York? The
Empire State Building?
Yeah, he comes out of a lift or an elevator in the Empire State Building, smoking a pipe.
Oh, I didn't even notice him. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
How awful.
So it is in there. So that, of course, is the big drinking game, you know, of course, with any Alfred Hitchcock movie, of course, spot the cameo. Because there's one in every film.
Well, now I know. I didn't know that, actually.
Yes, so there you go. That's where you will find it. All right, well, I think that's a wrap for Spellbound. So we might take a quick break, and we'll be back with our second movie. And shall we just say the quality goes downhill a little bit? But, hey, still a lot of fun. So anyway...
Yes.
We will be right back. And we are back, and we are now talking about the 1955. Yes, that's right, 1955 classic. Well, actually, just December 1955. So just scraped in. The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues. Yes, with a title like that, you know we're talking B grade, and we're talking 50s B grade. So you know this is going to be good. I love this. I love this. Okay, so our story. Okay, so basically, this is all part of this genre of the atomic movie, the radiation movie, the Cold War movie. And we can get into that as we go on, but this movie is definitely part of that genre. Now, our story is that basically there is... there's a creature living in the sea which is eating, well, not eating people, irradiating them, burning them with radiation burns. And this is one of the few movies I can honestly think of where you see the monster in the first 4 minutes of the movie, which is pretty weird. But anyway, so two people are set to investigate it. Now, our two people one is meant to be a government agent from a government agency I've never, ever heard of. But anyway, it was something like the Government Department of Military Intelligence and Artillery Tank Corps Commando. I don't know. It was some weird bloody thing. Anyway, and that is George Thomas. And also a scientist is sent, which is Ted Stevens, who uses an alias of Ted Baxter. Why he needs an... anyway. Probably
no reason at all.
Yeah, so anyway, but he still uses an alias, but he's sent as well. Now, there is a ocean laboratory, which is 2 rooms, actually, in this laboratory. There is... a vestibule where the receptionist lives, and there is an office cum laboratory which has, I think, an atomic reactor in it, but no one seems to notice.
And a fish tank.
Yes, just off to the side. And that's the entire laboratory come fish sea institute or whatever. And it is run by, now was it Professor King? Now there is also Lois King, who is the daughter of Professor King. This is starting to hit so many tropes here, but basically we have the hot daughter of the mad professor. So, but this is B grade we're living in, right?
And Ethel the receptionist.
Oh, Ethel the receptionist, who basically, is we'll get to her in a minute. And we also have, William, I think, William Grant, who is he's meant to be the assistant sort of biologist who, well, let's just say he's betrayed his country, I think is the best way to put it. He's working now as a spy, basically.
Wait, that's George Thomas.
Was that George Thomas, was it?
Yes, Bill is the FBI agent.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes,
sorry.
George is the assistant to Dr. King on this one, yeah.
Yes, no, you're quite right. My mistake.
I remember because he has my maiden name, Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. So, my apologies there. So anyway, our two agents work, first of all, independently, but then will come together to try to work out what is going on, why people are being irradiated in the ocean and turning up on the beach. And they will then start to work together to look into it. Of course, we will have a instant love attraction that will happen between Ted Stevens and Lois King. And we will have a nutty professor, basically, who, well, let's be honest, I'm going to give it away a little bit here, basically has created the creature because we find out that somehow or other he has found out how to turn uranium, right, a natural element found on Earth, to turn it into a nuclear reactor. Right? He doesn't take it out under the ocean. He doesn't take it out of the ground. He doesn't refine it. He doesn't build a reactor or anything like that. He just somehow or other is able to turn the rocks into nuclear reactors. So, this man is, I don't know, 200 years ahead of his time, basically, because we still don't know how to do that. Okay, so, anyway, this thing, so it's being guarded now by this monster, which is, from what I can gather, just an irradiated turtle, I think.
That's what it looked like, but didn't it attack somebody before he got, I thought that the turtle thing came later after the thing had already attacked somebody. I was confused.
I think he was trying to make a second one.
Was he? Okay. I wasn't sure.
But I'm not too sure why he was trying to make a second one. He already had one. I don't know why he needed more.
He thought that it would help mankind.
Yes. I really don't.
How, I don't know.
No. And anyway, so his assistant is working for, well, let's be honest, they don't say it, the Soviet Union, okay, to try to steal the secrets, kill off the people who were working there, and take these secrets of, I think, what is meant to be the idea of free energy. I mean, that's what we're kind of talking about, and take that back to the Soviet Union. They never say the Soviet Union, but we all know what they're talking about. And so the question basically is, will our two agents be able to solve, this mystery? Will they be able to stop the monster? Will Ted Stevens, alias Ted Baxter, fall in love with Lois King? Will Lois King fall in love with Ted Stevens, alias Ted Baxter?
I feel like I'm more excited about this film now by your description than I was about.
And that basically is our film. It's typical classic 1950s B-grade cheese, built around that whole thing of the 1950s, which was that love of the concept of what was believed to be free energy versus the absolute terrifying reality of atomic war. And so many of these movies all live into that. We can talk about that as we go on. What did you think of The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues Irish?
I enjoyed this movie immensely. because I laughed out loud so many times. You saw the monster really early.
Yeah.
And I was excited about the quality of the rubber suit of this monster attacking the divers who everybody in the movie who was killed by this monster, accidentally drowned and burned somehow, they all took out the same rowboat.
I know, I noticed that. It seemed
there was one boat in the movie and everybody took it out into the ocean.
And it was always just conveniently on the beach. It was like a communal rent-a-boat. It was like, if you, some cities, it depends where you live, they have those communal bikes where they're just bikes on the side of the road, and you walk up, or cars, and you walk up, you download the app, and then the car unlocks, you hop in, it takes $50 from your credit card, and you drive 20 kilometres. And then you just park the car, right? It's like that, but with a rowboat. It's just always on the beach.
Yeah, there were so many moments I kept thinking, why does everybody keep taking that boat out there?
I know. Oh, dear.
No, I enjoyed it. I thought, okay, I posted something on Twitter last night about it, actually, because of some of the lines that were in there. I mean, I couldn't believe the dialogue and stuff. And I was actually really surprised about the acting, because I thought the acting was actually relatively good, considering the script was so bad.
I agree with you, Irish. I actually think that you had a group of actors here who were given a really shitty script and acted their guts out to actually make it work. This is one of those things where the script writers were appalling and the actors saved the film.
Yeah, I can agree with that on a lot of levels. Yeah, there was this great moment in it when Dr. King tells the guy who's pretending to be Ted Baxter, the really Ted Stevens guy, go ahead and go over to my house, and if it's usually unlocked, if my daughter isn't there, just go ahead and walk in. And he does, but she's in the shower, of course, and there's this moment in this film at 1955 where she's in the bathroom in her strapless bra. And I thought, that's shocking, because you don't normally see that at that, in that era. And then she goes out and has to ask him to zip up her dress, and she's magically not wearing the bra anymore.
Well, I was trying. I was about to say I was shocked. I wasn't shocked. I mean, look, I grew up in Australia where nudity is second nature on TV, so it's
here,
I mean, it's kind of no big deal. But even kid shows have people running around with bare bottoms. It's like like, oh yeah, I'm serious. I've seen kids shows where people lose their pants. It's like, I'm not joking. Watch Round the Twist.
I don't think you're joking.
There's an ABC show called Round the Twist. They've had a number of bare bottoms on it. It's a government paid, like the Australian Broadcasting Commission kids show about people that live in a lighthouse. And
I must see this, Warren.
Yeah, Round the Twist. Yeah. So, kids show. Absolute kids show. What? Yeah. With nudity, yeah. Anyway, so I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked in that sense. What I was shocked by the fact this was an American film from 1955. That's what kind of shocked me. And what I was amazed by: see-through jumpers, jerseys, tops, whatever you want to call them. Got to stop using Australian terms. I know, guys. I'm sorry. I've got to stop doing it. People have told me about this in the last podcast. Stop talking Australian. Start talking internationally, please.
How are you supposed to do that? You're from Australia.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how to talk any way but American.
Yeah, I know, but if I was German, I wouldn't actually speak in German. I would speak in English. You know what I mean?
If you knew English.
Well, yeah, true, but
most Germans know English, so it's the Americans that don't know any other languages.
Oh, no, Australians are pretty bad too, I have to admit. But anyway, back to the film. So yes, see-through tops, women in their underwear, a lot of bathing suits, and I know bathing suits were pretty, I'd say, non-risque in 1955, but I still reckon they were they were showing what was probably the equivalent of the thong micro bikini in 1955.
Probably, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
With
Because there was a lot of colletage, a huge amount of cleavage, a lot of legs and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but I still thought, wow, for 1955, that's kind of pushing it a bit, I would have thought.
I was surprised by it, honestly. Yeah, it was a little weird. And then they had women take off more clothing than you were expecting in a film like this. And they had men putting on more clothing than you would expect. What I loved is at one point, the two agents, the government agents, go out in the boat to try to check something out, okay? And then they come back, and then they put on their suits and their blazers on the beach. They change out of their bathing suits and their scuba gear on the beach and put on their collared shirt and their ties and their pants and their blazers.
It's such a sign of the times, though, isn't it? It's like, it's Saturday, you're not working, but you still wear a suit and tie.
Of course you do, and you're at the beach.
But you know what, Iris? I love it. I absolutely adore it. I, in some weird way, want to go back to that. And I know everyone thinks I'm nuts. Who would want to not just live in T-shirts and shorts? You know, it's so practical. It's so comfortable. You know, but I love it. When I see people out on the weekend dressed up, I go, yeah, I love it. I don't know.
I love that too, Warren. I love to get dressed up, and there's nothing I love more than a 50s style dress with a crinoline under it or something and some nice little pumps. But I'm not putting them on the beach.
No.
After I've been scuba diving.
No. Not probably in this exact situation. Yes, I totally agree. But it is such a sign of the times, isn't it? Because the thing is, the only reality of the situation is in 1955, if they were going to go to the beach to go scuba diving, yeah, they would not have been wearing shorts and T-shirts in the modern style. They probably would have been wearing a polo shirt and a pair of chinos.
But they looked like they were scuba diving in their boxer shorts, and then they put on scuba hoods, but nothing else. So they put the scuba hoods on to put their mask on, and I thought, why? To keep your ears warm or something? I don't know what's happening.
I love this.
Anybody who knows about scuba diving knows you don't put scuba hoods on and nothing else.
I loved that they put on scuba hoods, but they didn't wear wetsuits. Why?
That's what I'm saying. They just swam in their boxers.
I loved it. And I swear they were their boxer shorts, too. They weren't even bathers. I swear they were in there. I know.
It was crazy.
And yeah, oh my God. But I suppose it probably helped with the stunt swimmers, maybe, because they could cover their faces more easily.
Or whatever, man.
I don't know. Talking about stunt swimming, did you know that the monster in this is a woman?
I did not.
The actual stunt diver in this movie who played the monster was a woman, and she was the first ever underwater sort of stunt person, if you like, in the history of cinema.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a first to this one. Yeah, she was the first.
Well, now the Oscars just needs to create a stuntman category and mention her at the very beginning of it. It should probably be named after her.
Actually, that's an interesting point. Is there a stunt person category in the Oscars?
There is not. And it needs to be one. I mean, there really does. And there's no casting category. The Emmys has a casting category, but no Oscar casting category.
Why isn't... But surely casting is crucial to a movie, as you well know.
Even extras casting is crucial to a film.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you well know, Iris, how important it is.
I do.
Wonder why that is.
There's not a lot of respect for the people behind the scenes in some areas. I'm not sure why yet, but hopefully it'll change. People are talking about it more. I'm hoping they'll add the categories. I think it's important to recognize how important something like stunts and casting are to an actual film. You can have an amazing script, but if your actors are crap, you're not going to have a good film.
Well, it's not. I mean, if we only talk about stunts, just to make the argument simple, how much does action play in modern movies? I mean, so much.
So much. And everybody can't be Keanu Reeves and do their own stunts. I'm sorry.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, Academy, don't make us send the boys around. Come on, get your act together.
Hey, look, I've got friends that were the people inside of Spider-Man's suit, but they didn't really get any credit for all the stuff they did. You know, they get a little credit at the end of the film, but nobody knows it was them doing all those things in the suit. And it's, that's sad. Those are great people who work really hard.
And I understand that the general population are not going to know who these people are. But isn't that the whole reason why they have awards, so these people can embrace what they do and be recognized?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Your films wouldn't be as exciting, your TV shows wouldn't be as exciting without the stunt doubles.
Yeah.
Also, butt doubles, those are very important. I would like to say.
Do they still do that? Or is that, I thought that was something.
We
really?
Still do that.
Because I know there was a thing where, nudity doubles, was a thing. But I thought, and I know there have been some movies which have had, be very careful how I say this. Okay, most movies with set scenes are simulated. Okay, there are some movies that have unsimulated set scenes, and I'm not talking about porn, I'm talking about real movies, who have unsimulated sets, but sometimes what they do is they use doubles in those bits and then intercut it, right, with the real actors. Now,
I don't know of any film in the US that's been showed that has unsimulated sex.
Yeah, it does. You've made a number of them. Ken Park.
Well,
Ken Park. Have you ever seen Ken Park?
No.
Oh, okay. There's a few of them. There is actually a few of them.
If there's actual sex in a film here, it's X-rated.
Oh, now I'm not saying it was shown at your cinemas. If it was still a mainstream film with mainstream actors, it may have not been. It may have only have got release in places like Europe and Australia. But
I didn't.
But you still made the film, is what I'm trying to say. It's like I think most people have seen Nine Songs or all these movies. I mean, they exist. They're mainstream. I don't even know why are we even going down this path. Oh, I don't even know.
Remember.
No. God. Shiny
Sex
balls,
and films,
Lawrence.
I don't know. We're talking about this monster film.
How do we get to? Oh, not
this is my whole problem in life.
Oh, not. Yeah, have you ever sat around with a friend or a couple of friends late at night, got a couple of drinks, you're talking, you start talking about, I don't know, what just happened in your city this afternoon. Within an hour, you are talking about landing the first person on Mars.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right?
My entire motto could just be, but I digress.
Yeah.
It should just be that.
I am so guilty of this. And I suppose a lot of people who listen to this show are going to have to decide whether they're going to be able to put up with it or not. Because, God, do we digress. We really do. Anyway.
The last time we had this, we had somebody who kept getting us back on track.
I know. She was good at that. I don't know if she was very good.
I need a gatekeeper.
I know. We have no gatekeeper. This is the problem, isn't it? We have absolutely no. So anyway, but yes, we were talking about how the stunt diver for the monster in this was a woman.
Yes, that's what it. Thank you.
Yes. So that was, I thought, really quite interesting. Of course, all of the underwater shots here have clearly been done in a swimming pool. It's interesting how the seaweed is only inches from the top of the water, and this brings up another thing too: the Phantom from 10,000 Leagues. Do you know how deep 10,000 Leagues actually is?
It was probably deeper than they could go out there on their rowboat.
Now, I had never thought about this because leagues is something I've never really had to deal with. And thank you to, I think it was the YouTube channel Dark Corners who actually pointed this out. Do you know 10,000 Leagues, 10,000 Leagues is, we start at the surface, right, of the water. We go down, we go past the bottom of the ocean, we go through the center of the Earth's core, we come out the other side of the Earth, and we go out into space.
Wait, how is that possible? Because we had movies called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
That would be even further.
Are you saying that I can't trust what they're saying to me in films?
No, the bottom of the ocean's floor is like about 500 leagues or something. It's not... Yeah. It's
20,000 leagues, yeah. So 10,000 leagues is only half that. That's too much.
Whether it was just that, writers and people just sort of worked on the premise that no one knows actually what a league is, so we'll just put a huge figure in front of it.
It sounds good. It's a good title.
Well, we talked about it before with Spellbound. Hey, if it sounds good, do it. If it looks good,
that's
do
right.
it.
It's only a movie.
It's only a movie. But that's exactly right. But it doesn't matter. This is not an historical tale of deep-sea diving. You know, so who cares? It doesn't matter. It's not the biography of Jacques Cousteau, you know.
Well, you know, I knew that was going to be an issue. Like the movie itself, I knew there was going to be problems and trouble in the whole story when in the biologist's office, the marine biologist's office, in the front area where the secretary was, there was an entire wall of spear guns.
Oh, I know. It was like walking into a gun shop for spear gun things.
I thought, what are these marine biologists doing with all these spear guns?
Well, I understand that they would probably... Here's the other thing too, right? Okay, it's more than just the spear guns, Irish. I'm trying to let people understand what this looks like. So you walk into the front door of this marine biology place, right? There is the receptionist room. In the receptionist room, there is a table. On the table is covered with flippers and diving equipment. There are 4 spear guns all on this beautiful, like a hunter has in their living room with all their hunting rifles, you know what I mean? Above the fireplace, all there. I remember my uncle used to have that above the fireplace, with all the rifles.
Yes.
Right. And all of those. But that's the reception room. So if you want to go diving, you've got to go to reception to get your flippers, which are on a table next to the receptionist. Okay. And then if you go through the door, there is one more room, and in that room is full of a whole heap of Petri dishes and Bunsen burners and stuff, and also a nuclear reactor.
Yes, and a fish tank. Don't forget the fish tank.
Oh, and the fish tank, yes. So that's what I was wondering. Was he actually going to use the nuclear reactor to put the turtle into the fish tank to make turtle soup? Or was he actually trying to make a mutant turtle? Now, it turns out turtle soup was not his option. He was not trying to make lunch. He was, in fact, trying to actually make a mutant turtle. And we do see the remnants of his, I want to say failed experiment, but he destroys his second creature, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
Yes. Because I think the cleaner comes in, who is, once again... I was going to say, the word's not typecast, but, where somebody plays a nationality over the top. It's like...
a stereotype.
Stereotype, it's like Speedy Gonzales, as a Mexican, and he comes in and says, "Oh my God, this is not one of God's creatures." to which the scientist sort of says, "It is not. It is one of man's, and I hope will never be continued." I
like at the end how Dr. King takes care of his creation and in the way that he feels like, I guess, is going to be the best way to do it. And I don't want to give away the ending, but at the very end, his daughter and these people that are the agents are on the beach and they see it and they just go, "Oh, that's so sad. Let's walk away now."
This is the thing that always blows my... It's like someone has just created an atomic reactor under the ocean. So far, let's see, they say 5 people have been killed. Then they blow up a cargo ship, oil tanker. That's probably another 20 people. So they say 25 people have been killed, murdered, right? And it's a bit like, oh yeah, that's fine. Case closed. Let's all go home and we'll get married.
Don't worry, everything's fine now, dear.
Your father's dead. Don't worry. Hey, there's a chapel around the corner. You want to get married?
Take care of her. I feel like she'll need you now.
Oh, I know.
What does that mean? Is that foreshadowing?
And the other thing too, Irish. Did you notice when the father embraces the daughter? Okay, now I am not going to speak badly of the actor or what he was told to do or any such thing. But that was like watching Donald Trump embrace his daughter. It was so inappropriate.
Oh, God, please. You just gave me
I'm not. If anyone has seen that,
shuddered.
if anyone has seen a lot of those famous footage of Donald Trump embracing his daughter, where he literally has his hand on her ass, right? And
Yes.
he's, right.
Give it a little pat, yeah.
I am not joking. That is how this guy embraces his daughter. And I'm sort of wondering, was he like one of these sleazy guys who was trying to feel her up or something? I mean, what was going on there?
I don't know, but I had that same moment on the other film, Spellbound. There was the moment with the older Dr. Freud character that Ingrid Bergman was with, and she went to talk to him, and she was saying, "Oh, I know he's going to be okay." Like, they got so close. There was about 3 inches between their faces.
Right.
And I thought, this man, because you could see it in like his entire being, he was really inappropriately happy about being that close to Ingrid Bergman.
Well, I
wondered if it was a moment on the set that there was some uncomfortableness for her.
I can still remember seeing an interview with, Sam Neill, which a lot of people think he's Australian, but he's actually a Kiwi. He's actually a New Zealander, right?
Oh, okay.
And he was, and I remember seeing him interviewed. And he was talking about a movie he was in with Sharon Stone. Pretty sure it was Sharon Stone, and there was a set scene in it, right? And he was, sort of, and they were talking about it, and he sort of said, "Hang on, I'm naked in bed with Sharon Stone, and we're grinding against each other. Did I enjoy it? Fuck yes. What do you think?" Like, what do you think? I'm human, right? And I do wonder if there was a bit of that.
I can't say there probably wasn't. I thought this old man in his entire life never thought he would be 3 inches from Ingrid Bergman's face.
Yeah, I know.
And he just doesn't know how to handle it right now.
Okay, here's an interesting story. Who's the famous? I don't know if I call him a shock jock. He based out in New York, really long hair, really famous guy on New York radio. And there was a film he made about himself, or was made about him based on his book.
Howard Stern.
Howard Stern. Now, I heard Howard Stern. He was Howard Stern on his own podcast, and I saw this, and he was talking about the fact he was talking to some actors to male actors about how in these scenes you control yourself. I think we all know what we're talking about, guys.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But he said that when he made his movie, the movie which is about him, when he was meant to be in a scene in the bath, he said it didn't matter if he was married or not. He couldn't stop it happening. Well,
it's a physical. I don't know how you would do that.
He said he's never, he's never cheated. From my understanding, I don't think he ever cheated on his wife or anything like that. But the thing was that he still couldn't help that from happening, and so that. The whole idea is that if suddenly you're being asked to be in a movie with Ingrid Bergman, it's a little bit like, you don't want to be inappropriate, but at the same time, holy dooly. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, this older man wasn't having a sex scene simulation with her, but I will tell you from a film that we did back in the early 90s or late 80s, I can't remember. It was called The Walking Dead. It wasn't the film or the TV series with the zombies. It was actually about the Black experience in Vietnam. It was directed by Preston Whitmore III. Right. It had Eddie Griffin and Bernie Mac and a bunch of Black comedians and different people in it. There was a scene we had to do that we were shooting here in Florida, and we had to fill a church. And during the church scene, there was the moment when the pastor's wife was in her house having sex with somebody else. And so we had to shoot this scene with them having and pardon me, but doggy style sex. Okay. The guy that the director was a friend of his that he had to play this role of the man who was going to have sex with the wife. Yeah. Bailed out at the last second. And so we had a set filled with extras, and we had to go to our extras and say, "Hey, look, is anybody willing to do this scene?" And we had to tell them that, delicately here, that they were going to sew their junk into a sock.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
To make sure that there wasn't anything exposed per se.
Yeah. No, I understand how that all works with all the things. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
One of my extras stepped up to do this, okay? Because one, he got paid really well, and two, I don't know why he did it, but I was so thankful because we were going to be screwed if he didn't. So, haha.
For anyone who grew up in the 1970s in Britain, boom, boom.
He gets up there, and it's a closed set, so there's just the director and the actors and the cinematographer, camera guy, like they're all up there, and that's it. And he told me afterwards, because he totally did it, and they sewed his junk into a sock, and he did the scene, and I asked him, I was like, was that hard? And he said, well, yeah, but it wasn't as, like, in the way that I thought it would be hard. And I don't mean that as a double entendre. He said that honestly, with all the people in the room and everybody watching him, it wasn't a thing. Like, he couldn't get there anyway. Because there were just too many people watching. Apparently he wasn't a voyeur. But, there's people, I guess, that can go through that and do it, and they're freaked out about it, and it's nothing. And then there's people who get into it in the sense that maybe they can't separate it.
Look, there is an actress that I know, and I'm not going to mention her name on air because I don't think it's fair, because the conversation was given to me off air. Okay.
Yes.
This was in a past podcast. All right. And the conversation happened off air. So I'm not going to mention their name. Not even
off the record.
I'm not going to even mention the film. All right. But the whole thing is that in all the pre-production, all getting it all set up, everything was fine. There was going to be, let's just say they were going to show a lot more than a film would normally show. And as soon as the camera started rolling, it couldn't happen. Because as the camera wasn't rolling, it happened. As soon as the camera started rolling, it wouldn't happen. I think guys should know what I'm talking about.
That's pressure, right? Man. How are you supposed to do that?
and so it's interesting, that that was told to me by the actual actress who was in the scene, and she had total respect for the actor. It was just that the 10 other people in the room,
Exactly.
It's fascinating, all of that. So, I don't know if it's fascinating, but it's interesting anyway.
Well, yeah, it was actually interesting to be involved in it and see the psychological thing with the exhibitionism versus voyeurism and that whole kind of thing. Yeah. It was and to be able to do it in a professional manner and still be able to work with these people the next day,
That's the thing that I also find quite interesting. Yes, the fact that if you do a scene which is really over the top, and I'm not even just talking sexual here. I could be talking violence. I could be talking in other elements as well. It's not just sex I'm talking about. That idea that you then have to confront these people 24 hours later after what's just happened. I think that must be quite an experience within itself.
Perhaps. I've never seen it happen with a violent scene per se, unless somebody's like a method actor and they were unable to separate themselves from a violent character while they were shooting, which I have a real issue with method actors. I don't know why you have to become something to be able to portray it, but
there's an Australian movie, Mad Dog Murdoch, where there was an American actor, part of that school, who came out here, Dennis Hopper, and he was literally, they had finished the last shot that they needed him to be in. They politely manhandled him onto an aircraft and sent him back to America and said, "Good riddance, we never want to see you again."
Oh, Lord.
Apparently he was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. He just was, there was nothing that was taboo. Nothing was taboo. He would turn up on set to do his lines drunk. He wouldn't hold his punches, so he'd actually physically punch somebody out. It was just absolutely appalling.
I heard some stories about, some actors on some of the Suicide Squad.
Right.
Somehow they behaved and how it was really difficult for the other actors to deal with it because they became their character through the whole shoot. And it was really difficult. So, I mean, I love actors. I respect actors, but I do know that there's a lot of them, just like a lot of comedians, that have some deep issues that they're trying to deal with.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like that classic line from the between Sir Laurence Olivier and on the what was it called, the Marathon Man with not Gene Hackman. If anyone knows the movie The Marathon Man, oh my God, he's a very famous actor. He was in that, the movie about the virus and everything, which is anyway, Dustin Hoffman.
I'm blanking too.
Dustin Hoffman. Where where before a scene on The Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman was going through all these breathing exercises and doing all of this exercise work and punches in the air, and he was shouting words and doing all this stuff. And Sir Laurence Olivier said to him, "My dear boy, darling, what are you doing?" And he said, "I am psyching myself up to become the character. I am entering the actual mind of the character that I am playing." And Sir Laurence Olivier said to him, "My dear son, have you ever tried acting?"
Thank you, Sir Lawrence.
It's a classic line, and apparently it really did happen.
Oh my
apparently
gosh.
the two gentlemen did not get on at all throughout that movie.
Oh my gosh, that's great though.
He was Sir Laurence Olivier was very much of that attitude that acting was a job. You pretended to be somebody, you turned up,
Yes.
you pretended to be somebody, and you got a paycheck and you left. And then you went to your...
Exactly it.
It was very different to, people like Jack Nicholson and, this modern thing of where you have to become the character.
The Stanislavski method.
Rather than just pretending.
Yes, that's what acting is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I get that. You're talking to somebody who's been in casting for so long.
I
get it.
Okay, so should we actually talk about the film or just give up?
Oh, well, I gave up, but let's talk about it.
So one thing I did want to bring up about this movie, and that is that, of course, it is absolutely in that time of the Cold War horror film, which was the 1950s. It kind of disintegrated by the 60s and 70s, but through the 50s, it was that idea that we loved nuclear energy. Nuclear energy was good, but we were also terrified about what it could do. You had, obviously, what was it, Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, and then the Cuban Missile Crisis. Nuclear war was very, very real, although, mind you, I do remember in the 80s it was pretty fucking scary and real as well. But back then, it was literally like it could happen at any moment. And movies dealt with that. And this is one of those atomic-style movies where, in many ways, it's all based around atomic energy, and there is a baddie and a goodie. Now, in this case, the baddie is very, very obvious. It's the Soviet Union. What did you think about that element? Did you think it was even needed?
I didn't think it was needed. I thought it was weird. I thought they just maybe wanted to have a specific bad element in it, but also to show a woman who was super platinum blonde in a bikini on the beach with a Slavic accent. You're not doing this job properly, and we don't believe in you anymore.
Have you ever noticed how in movies Soviet spies embrace the capitalist lifestyle to its zenith? Do you know what I mean? They're encrusted in diamonds, or they're lazing by the beach reading a book, or they're never like it really was in the Soviet Union, where it's like going to work, coming home in a shared house. Do you know what I mean? I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting aspect of this film. Honestly, it seemed kind of just dropped into it to make you hate the Soviets, basically, without saying it was the Soviets.
Yes, well, they never do say that, do they? I know. I think
no, they don't.
Like
they just need the hot blonde honeypot that talks with a Slavic accent. That's it, and then you know.
Although
that George is bad.
Although what is interesting here, bad woman blonde, good woman brunette.
Oh, the opposite of last week in the Viking film.
Exactly right. The exact opposite. But she is such a Nikita character, though, isn't she? If anyone knows what I mean by, I hope everyone, you know what I mean by that. A Nikita.
I do.
Yeah. She is such a Nikita character, though, isn't she? I mean, you know, that idea of the hot Soviet spy. You know,
absolutely.
That I've always wondered. Why, and I suppose it's all political, but, you know, like we have James Bond, okay, from Britain. In America, you have, was Tom Clancy.
Austin Powers.
Well, not Austin Powers, he's Canadian anyway, technically. But you have, Jack Ryan, the Jack Ryan character, all right, who's probably the closest America gets to a James Bond. Would be Jack Ryan.
I could see that, yeah.
And although it's nothing like James Bond whatsoever, but, you know, that he's the closest America has. Nikita, okay, from France, which, you know, why that concept of Nikita never got bigger than it did? Because I would have thought the idea of an international spy assassin who was a hot female, why did that never get bigger than it did? Yeah. Well, now, I know there's been a number of TV shows and a number of movies in a number of countries. It was called Black Cat in Hong Kong, in China. Yeah, I get all of that. But it never grew like Jack Ryan or James Bond.
Overall, I'm going to say because vaginas. That's
isn't that a good thing? Oh, well, yeah, no, no. Sorry, I get what you're saying.
I mean, yes, they are, but not in film, apparently,
Sorry, I get what you're saying. Sorry, I was... Sorry, sorry, no, don't worry.
I shock you, Warren? I'm sorry.
No, I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong? I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, I get what you're
have vaginas. That's the problem. We have a lot of sexism here in the country. It's great to show strong women, but they're basically, you just want to have sex with them. You don't really respect them. That's what they're for. We don't have women like James Bond in our society here, in our stories, where you would really think this was somebody who was on the ball and is going to have, you know, be able to take care of themselves, because after all, they're just a weak woman. See, we're still fighting that.
Look, I agree with you. I totally agree that that's why it's happened. But what I don't get about it is that the whole idea of James Bond has always been men want to be him, women want to be with him, right? That's been one of their advertising slogans for, 50 years, okay?
Perhaps.
Now, but if you reverse that, if you make Nikita our new Russian, you know, equivalent of James Bond, okay, reverse it. Women want to be her, men want to be with her. What the fuck is wrong with that? Do you know what I mean?
Well, sure, but they still don't, the men still don't think she's really all that powerful. It's not about the fact that they just don't buy into the fact that she'd be able to get away with all this stuff. There's some films out there. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's the same thing I said about Xena when that show was out. It was women, you know, like people either want to do her or be her. They're the only two things.
So like there were two shows running side by side out of New Zealand at that time. There was Hercules and Xena, right? And I don't believe with a lot of the viewpoints of the man who played Hercules, although I have seen him made a few films where he actually kind of sort of said, yeah, for a film perspective, I'll actually go against that. So I've some respect to him for that. But apart from that...
He got a paycheck.
yeah. So, he is a bit weird, isn't he, really?
He is a bit.
It's a bit weird. But the whole idea is that... but which was more popular? Was Hercules more popular or was Xena more popular?
Xena was more popular, and to this day, Xena is still more popular.
But see, this is my point. Why can't we then... We keep showing that... I mean, I loved Ocean's 8. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I did too.
The new Ghostbusters, and I know they're going to now reboot it again and forget the last one happened. Apparently, they're going to forget the last one happened and reboot
that's
it.
because they were trying to do a new movie before the women got a hold of doing it, and then we had somebody die, so they didn't get to do it. So they had to change what they were doing.
What was his name? Ramis.
Harold Ramis. Yeah.
Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
But originally it was meant to be the original cast. That was the whole idea. And then he died, so they said, all right, let's turn it on its head. Let's make it females. And all the surviving cast members did cameos in it, for God's sake. They obviously accepted it.
They did.
And the thing too, I thought it was funny, and I loved the role reversal. I loved the bimbo male. I
did too.
I thought that was hilarious. I thought he was great, and then he turns into the baddie. I thought it was. So I actually loved female Ghostbusters, even though I
enjoyed it too.
People hate it. I don't get. I love Wonder Woman. I think it's brilliant.
That one was really good. That's the only DC film I've ever seen that I actually didn't have but one complaint about in the entire thing. I had one complaint about that, and I know it was based on the comics. It was the actual moment where she had sex with Steve Rogers, even though they didn't show it. They implied it happened. I didn't feel it was necessary to the plot, and it annoyed me.
There are a lot of things that were totally ludicrous about that. One, World War I Germans were not Nazis. Okay?
No, they were not.
All right? World War I was a war of empires. There were no goodies.
Yes.
There were no baddies. It was a war of empires. To be German or to be British or to be American or Australian or Canadian or Serbian or Russian, we were all the same. It was a war over empire. World War II was different. That was a war over fascism. It was a totally different thing. The whole idea to try to pretend that Germans in World War I were Nazis was fucking ludicrous, and I didn't like that
weird,
about it. That I didn't like.
I didn't even pay attention to that part. Honestly.
Yeah, that I didn't like, because the Germans my country of birth fought Germany in World War I, but I don't have a problem. That was a war of empire, and also, what is it? 5 generations ago. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think that's just like, give them a break, for God's sake. You can't just make the Germans always the baddies. I know Nazism was wrong and they paid a fucking big price for it. So, you can't just always make your baddie a bloody German or a Brit, it seems to be.
We don't know who to make the bad guys now. Everything is, it's not politically correct to make anyone the bad guys now. You have to make up a new race of people and make them the bad guys.
Well, I do love it. I still remember watching a French movie, which was the remake, Skyfighters, which is the remake of the Aeronauts, which is a TV show from the 70s I fell in love with as a child, which was shown in Australia, which was about these kind of like fighter pilot spy type people. And it was a French TV show, and they remade it. And when they made it, the baddie was an Aussie. How cool was that? The baddie was an Australian. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I thought, yes, I loved it.
It's always fun to play the bad guys.
I love bad. I saw an interview with Sir Roger Moore, which obviously
I love him.
And he actually admitted that although he adored playing Bond, he was born to play Bond. Let's be honest. Okay?
He was my first Bond, I'll admit.
He was my first Bond, not my favourite Bond. Pierce Brosnan will always be my Bond, personally.
Oh my gosh, okay. That's a whole other story we have to talk about at some point.
Oh, okay, all right. But he made the comment that he actually said that just once, and he knew it would be impossible, but just once he would love to have played the villain. Like, he said he would have loved
that's the best.
He would have loved to have come back to play the villain, in a Bond film. Because he said it's such a much more interesting character to play.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
I've heard Alan Alda interviewed that says that he played the goody all his life. And now that he's older, he plays villains. You look at Alan Alda, he's always a villain now.
I love him,
right?
yeah.
And he says he so much loves playing the villain. He says there's so much more to work with as an actor, as the villain, than the hero.
For sure.
He said,
I agree with that. I'd much rather play Ursula than Ariel the Little Mermaid. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That wasn't quite where I was going to go with that, but that's,
of course not. But I live in Florida and we have Disney here.
Ah, there you
I'm
go.
a princess. Come on.
This reminds me of my daughter. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, so we have so fucking digressed. Anyway, what, mind you, that's what this show is. We'll just call it Day Drinking Digressions.
Yes.
I reckon that's.
It's like having a conversation with me in my living room. That's
exactly right. Look, if listen to this show because you want to hear two friends have a chat about movies. Don't listen to this show if you want a serious review of a movie, because you're not going to get it.
No.
All right?
I don't do serious things.
No. It doesn't work. There's 200,000 podcasts out there that do that. Okay, this is two friends having a drink, chatting about the films they watched. Is there anything else? I reckon it's been 20 minutes before we even mentioned the film, to be honest.
Probably, yeah. What I want to mention about this film is that I thought the acting was great. I thought the suit was ridiculous, and that's what made it wonderful. But overall, I thought the script was like the worst I'd ever seen. I just thought the script was so bad.
The script is
But it was so much fun to watch.
But I love watching a 1950s, what they thought was kind of like a semi-soft porn movie, which I think is hilarious. The script was bad. I thought the actors were really good, and actually a very attractive cast too, I think.
I agreed with that. I was, the cast was good and the acting was good. It was the script and the directing that I thought lacked.
And the other thing I love too, I love the way that they didn't try to hide grey hairs. Did you notice some of the actors, their hair was graying, and they didn't actually try to dye their hair? They just said, yeah, whatever.
I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah. Probably.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't notice it.
It was.
I'm going to look for that next time.
I thought that was great. I love that. I'm down with the Monique Parent, kind of thing. Embrace the grey. Who cares?
Shh, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. I care. No grey for me.
It's so easy for me to say that as a guy because you're allowed to be grey. Yes, it's a little bit. Yeah, so.
I don't even know what my natural hair color is anymore. I just went from black to brown back to blonde, so I don't know.
With my daughter, I forgot. I still remember. I have never. It was, I think, from the age of 14 through to about 25. My daughter's hair color was never the same for more than a week.
Oh, yeah, that's been pretty much me for a while.
It was just like, oh, what are you this week? Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'll never forget the eye roll that probably nearly broke my parents with the hot pink hair once.
Hot pink? Okay, I've got to ask, when was that? When was the hot pink hair?
It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, my God.
It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, that is pretty.
That's neither here nor there.
No. So, all right. So, I think we've just lost all track of this movie anyway. So let's just give it our rating on the Eric Roberts scale of movie making. Where would you like to put this one?
I'm going to give this one a 3. I enjoyed the bra scene and the disappearing bra scene. That's great.
Okay.
And the acting was good. I enjoyed that. It was a really low budget film. I know what that feels like. So I'm not going to take it lower than 3, but yeah, that's 3. Okay. I'm going to give it a 3.
I'm going to give it a 4. So I'm going back to where I was last week with the idea that you get what you expected. So, in other words, you go to see a movie with a title like The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues, you know it is not going to be War and Peace. All right? So
that is true.
Okay, so I'm going on that. And it pretty much delivers, but unlike, I think, the movie we talked about last week, I'm not even going to attempt to say the title. I'll just call it Viking Women and the Sea Serpent. This movie doesn't deliver quite as much. It's still good, but it doesn't deliver. It's still got some drawn-out scenes. I think the movie could have been a little bit shorter, to be honest, with a lot of it. I love the cast, though. I thought they were great. The writing was absolutely appalling, but the cast saved it. The cinematography was not bad, truthfully. I think it was not bad. So, yeah, I'll give it a 4.
All right. Well, we're doing a flip-flop on the movies. I gave it 1 on the other one a little more, and you're giving this one. So,
yeah, well,
these are good films, man.
But this is the other thing. There's no such thing, and I truly believe this, as a bad film. There is... Okay.
No, I agree with that as well. Okay. I rate things on a level of Catwoman bad.
I know,
so
yes,
I think, as long as I'm entertained by it, it can be Catwoman bad, and I'll still enjoy it.
Yeah.
I just have to be entertained by it. It doesn't have to be a great film. I'm not looking for Oscar winners.
I mean, look, there are some films which are seriously bad. So I will break what I just said. Zardos is a classic example. That film is just absolute bullshit. And I will never understand how that has become a cult classic. I know it's not Sean Connery in a red G-string running around, which I know a lot of women will love. Okay.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, red G-string, right? That's what he wears the whole movie.
Okay. Right. I have not seen this, and now I am very curious. Thank you.
The problem is, unless you want to watch Sean Connery for an hour and a half in a red G-string, now, if that is your thing, then you must watch and own Zardos and have a film festival every Saturday night where you sit back with a martini and watch Zardos. However, for the rest of the modern world, it is one of the worst movies ever made. It is so bad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But then again, look, okay, everybody knows how much, especially you Irish, how much I love Sheena, okay? But most people who ever watch it think it's crap. I've never yet met anyone who thinks it's good. I mean, seriously, I have not. Everyone goes, there's a pretty boring, stupid TV show where they say, oh, that movie was shit. Right? I've never met anyone who liked it. Ever.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it had its niche, obviously. It was on a while. But, yeah, I mean, everybody's got their thing.
The thing for Sheena, for me, is, of course, everyone forgets I came from the comic books to it, where most people came from the TV series or the movies back to the comic books. So I was, in that way. Anyway, has nothing to do with what we're talking about. These are topics for off-air discussion, not on the podcast. So, thank you.
You need to record those.
What was it like? Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. They had the Pete and Dud tapes, which were just their conversations talking about shit, and they released them as actual albums. They released as actual albums, just them talking shit.
Oh God. My sister's visiting too. I probably.
Yeah, I know. All right, look, we should wrap it up. Thank you for listening to the ramblings of Warren and Irish, that we try to claim is a movie review podcast.
I never claimed such a thing. No, I just said we'd be talking about this movie.
That's why it's called the Saints Martini. It's got alcohol in the title, guys. All right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Please don't expect anything other than that.
This show is not a serious movie review channel. This is two friends having a chat about two movies that they watched, and you'd be lucky if 25% of the podcast is about the movie. So, if you enjoy our company, if you enjoy our conversations, please subscribe and keep listening. We are, of course, on YouTube on the Saints Martini. We are, of course, on Apple Podcasts on the Saints Martini. If you use your podcast search engine, whichever one you happen to use, just type in the Saints Martini, we will come up. Please subscribe, and then you can listen. You'll get your alerts for when we come up. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter. Is it all right if we give our Twitters? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, you can follow the Irish. Is it Irish Stewart or the Irish Stewart?
The Irish Stewart.
The Irish Stewart. Sorry. And it is Saints Martini, not the Saints Martini. Saints Martini. I'm sorry, Twitter makes these things happen. It's not us, okay?
They do.
Okay. And so you can follow us on those as well. I don't know why, because I'll just be posting some pictures of some watches or something along those
and I'll
lines.
just be posting pictures of my cats probably, and then random things that pop into my head. So.
Yes. And wristwatch check, I am wearing the Boulevard Luna today, just for any of you watch people out there. Yes, the only American watch to have gone to the moon. So there you go, Irish.
That's very fancy.
There's only been one American watch which has gone to the moon, and I am wearing it. Well, not the actual one that went to the moon.
I was going to say, how'd you get that one?
Well, that's I believe that watch is in the Smithsonian. So don't I am wearing the watch, not the watch. If you get what I'm trying to say. Yes, that's a show. Oh my God, that was so all over the place. That is a show. I think we're going to be back for podcast 3 unless we all just say to fuck with this. And yes, so hopefully we'll be back
Give us
next
some
week.
feedback.
Yeah, no worries. All right then. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.